In this video, we're going to look at the irregularities of the hada verb. One of the first things you encounter when you start learning Korean is this concept of vowel harmony. You encounter this in verbs as they conjugate, but you also encounter that in a lot of the kind of sound imitation words in Korean. But we're going to look at the vowel harmony today and how that applies to the hada verb. And so verbs that end in the a or o sound has a connecting vowel a and then plus the ending. And then all others plus adds the a connecting vowel plus and the ending. And then what's interesting with the hada verb, which is verb to do and to be, you would think it would take the a because it has a in it, but it's not a. It takes a, and then of course the ending. So there's a question: is why is there this exception with hada? And so just to make sure we have a concept here of how the vowel consonants vowel harmony works. So for example, oda, which is to come, when you have o and then the connecting vowel a, and then say plus the informal ending yo, and then you have o, a, yo, which combine to wa, yo. And so this is just an illustration of the concept. And so let's look at the hada verb and why it's different. So in order to understand why for hada, the connecting verb is all, we have to go back in time and look at how the Korean sound has changed over time. So hada is not the original form. It comes from this form and it's written with a dot here and ta. So in the Korean alphabet, there are a few alphabets that are no longer used. For example, there are 4 major ones that are no longer used. I'm just going to write that for us here. And they all have different names, but we're not going to go into all of it. We're going to focus on this one. This one is a vowel, and these guys are consonants. And so let's look at this vowel that is just simply a dot. The Korean name for this is called the areya. That's not the original name, but are means below, and a is just kind of an approximation of its sound. So for example, compare ha, the a is next to it, and then here is the areya, which is beneath the hit. The approximation of this sound is somewhere between a and a a sound if you say it really quickly together. Like and it's low, kind of in the chest sound. That's my best approximation. And so what ended up happening over time is that this sound, something like ha da, started to change because this sound became kind of an unstable sound, and the areya kind of changed into 3 different sounds. It morphed into the a sound or the sound, and occasionally into the a sound. So let me give you some examples. The word that one of sort of typical Korean verb word maum actually comes from this form in Middle Korean is mium with a areya, and then this is a z sound. This is one of the other sounds that are no longer used. It's like a z sound, and it has a areya and a mium. So it would sound something like ma-zum. It's kind of lower in the chest. So what ends up happening is that the areya, you can see, changed into a and changed into a sound. So you can see that this changes into a and into sound. And so there's this pattern that happens when you have the first syllable and the second syllable. The area turns into in the first syllable and a weaker in the second syllable. And so what ended up happening with hada is the sound started shifting into sound. But there's this connecting vowel that we talk about. So what ended up happening is that even though ha, the area turned into hada, when it conjugated, the area still remained. So something be like ha, ha. So it would be something low. So this would be the conjugated form. And what's interesting is I was looking into this and trying to figure out what changed here. What was the change? And there's about two pathways that this could have happened. And I wasn't able to determine it specifically, so I'm just going to list both of these pathways. So the first pathway, in terms of how this would have happened, is you go from ha and then the area and then the area gets replaced by So this is one pathway. The second pathway is where you have ha and then you have the area and the area changes into sound, which follows this, what happened with the example with maum, changes into this. And so then this becomes a sound that also needs a connecting vowel here, like that. And so maybe here in the sort of additional step, it adds a as a connecting vowel because of the sound. But because is a weak Korean vowel, this gets dropped. So you get something like ha and So these are the two pathways in which the hada verb maintains its area in its conjugated form, and this conjugated form gets changed into a sound. So that is why when you have the hada verb and you conjugate it, it's ha plus and not ha plus So I hope that makes sense. And if you have any thoughts or questions or comments, you can leave that in the comment section below and let me know what you think about this explanation. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.